The shuttle doors opened, and Danny Holt took his first breath of recycled station air. He was 17 years old and standing on Seven, a massive space station that floated between three different star systems. His legs felt weak from the long journey, but his eyes were wide open and taking in everything around him. The Galactic Martial Arts Academy rose before him like a mountain made of metal and glass. It was the most famous fighting school in all of known space. Students came here from 100 different worlds to learn combat and earn ranks that would follow them for the rest of their lives. And now Danny was one of them, the first human teenager ever accepted into the exchange program. A woman walked toward him through the crowd of aliens. She was human, maybe 19 years old, with short brown hair and a serious expression on her face. She wore a uniform with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. "Danny Holt," she asked. "That's me. I'm your liaison officer. I'll be helping you adjust to life here." She looked him up and down like she was measuring him for a coffin. "You're smaller than I expected." Danny shrugged. He was used to that comment. He stood about 5 feet 8 inches tall with a lean build that made him look more like a runner than a fighter. His brown hair was cut short and his face was friendly and open. Nothing about him seemed dangerous or special. "Come on," said, "I'll show you to the academy." They walked through corridors filled with aliens of every shape and size. Danny saw creatures with scales and creatures with fur. He saw beings with 4 arms and beings with no arms at all. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others slithered or floated or moved in ways he could not even understand. And all of them looked at him with the same expression. It was a look of amusement mixed with pity, like someone watching a small animal wander into a place it did not belong. "They're starring," Danny said quietly. "Get used to it," replied. "Humans don't have a great reputation out here. Most species think we're soft and weak. No claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom, just pink skin and dull teeth." "What do you think?" Glanced at him. "I think you should keep your head down and try not to embarrass Earth too badly." They entered the main training hall and Danny felt his heart beat faster. The room was enormous, big enough to hold a football field. The floor was covered with fighting mats of different colors, and on those mats, aliens were sparring with each other in ways that made Danny's stomach tight. A reptilian creature with green scales was throwing punches so fast that Danny could barely see them. A 4-armed being was grappling with 2 opponents at once and winning easily. A creature made of what looked like living rock was simply standing still, while another alien broke its fists trying to hurt it. "This is where you'll train," said. "Beginners start on the white mats." Danny noticed that the white mats were in the corner, far from everything else. Only a few students trained there, and they all looked young and uncertain. "I've been training since I was 6, Danny said. "Shouldn't I start somewhere higher?" Shook her head. "Humans are automatically classified as non-combat capable. Academy rules. You start at the bottom no matter what experience you have." Before Danny could argue, a shadow fell over him. He looked up and saw the biggest reptilian creature he had ever seen. It stood over 7 feet tall with dark red scales and yellow eyes that seemed to glow with cold intelligence. It wore a black belt around its waist, the highest rank in the academy. "Instructor Al," said quickly, bowing her head. "This is the human exchange student, Danny Holt." The instructor looked down at Danny the way a person might look at an insect. "Another human," he said. His voice was deep and rough like stones grinding together. "We have had 12 human students in the past 50 years. None of them made it past white belt. Most quit within the first month." "I don't plan to quit," Danny said. Al made a sound that might have been a laugh. "They all say that. Your species lacks the physical tools for true combat. No offense intended. It is simply biology." "None taken," Danny said. His voice was calm and his face showed nothing. A commotion near the center of the hall drew everyone's attention. Students were gathering around one of the blue mats, cheering and shouting in different languages. Danny pushed through the crowd to see what was happening. 2 aliens were fighting on the mat. One was a creature with skin and thin limbs that moved with desperate speed. The other was something Danny had never seen before. It had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle, and its skin was deep purple. Its face had no expression at all as it fought. The 4-armed creature moved like water and struck like lightning. It blocked every attack with 2 arms while striking with the other 2. Within seconds, the alien was on the ground, gasping for air and unable to move. "Winner," an announcer called out. The purple alien raised all four arms in victory. The crowd cheered loudly, turned slowly, scanning the audience, and his eyes stopped on Danny. "A human," said. His voice carried across the hall even though he did not shout. "I have heard that humans believe they are fighters, that they have something called martial arts." He made the words sound like a joke. "Perhaps one day this little human will show us what that means." The crowd laughed. Danny said nothing. Grabbed his arm. "Come on, let's get you to your quarters." As they walked away, Danny looked back at one more time. The alien had already forgotten about him and was accepting praise from his admirers. "That's said, they're born with four arms and bones that are 3 times denser than ours. He's been the Academy champion for 4 years. No one has ever beaten him." "Has anyone ever studied how he fights?" Danny asked. Frowned at the strange question. "What do you mean?" "His patterns, his timing, the way he moves. Does the Academy keep recordings of his matches?" "Yes, but why would you want to watch them? You're a white belt. You won't face anyone like him for years, if ever." Danny smiled slightly. It was a small smile that did not reach his eyes. "I like to learn," he said. "That's all." That night in his small room on the station, Danny sat on his bed and thought about everything he had seen. The aliens were strong. They were fast. They had natural weapons that humans could never match. But Danny had noticed something else too. They fought the same way every time. Their styles were built around their physical advantages, and they never seemed to change or adapt. They had never needed to. Humans were different. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other with nothing but their bodies and their minds. They had created hundreds of different fighting styles because they had no choice. They had to be creative to survive. Danny closed his eyes and remembered his father's words from years ago. The strongest fighter isn't the one with the biggest muscles. It's the one who understands the fight better than anyone else. Tomorrow he would start training. Tomorrow he would watch and learn and wait. And when the time was right, he would show them all what a human could do. 1 week passed at the Galactic Martial Arts Academy, and Danny Holt learned many things. He learned that the reptilians woke up slow in the morning because their blood was cold. He learned that with their four arms always led attacks with their upper right hand. He learned that most aliens thought of fighting as a test of natural strength rather than a skill to be developed. And he learned that everyone thought he was a joke. Every day in the training hall, students would point at him and whisper to each other. Sometimes they did not even bother to whisper. They spoke loudly in Galactic Common, knowing he could understand every word. "Look at the human, so small and soft. I heard their bones break like dry branches. Why do they even let prey species into the academy?" Danny ignored all of it. He went to his classes on the white mats and practiced the basic movements they taught him. He bowed to his instructors and said yes when he was supposed to say yes. He never argued and never complained. But every night, he went back to his room and watched recordings of fights. He studied most of all, watching the champion defeat opponent after opponent. He watched the same matches over and over until he could predict every movement before it happened. On the 8th day, Instructor Al announced that assessment week would begin. All students would demonstrate their skills in front of the entire academy. Those who performed well would advance in rank. Those who failed would remain where they were or be sent home. "Even the new human will participate," Al said, looking directly at Danny. "Academy tradition requires all students to be assessed, regardless of how long they have trained here." A ripple of excitement went through the crowd. Danny heard someone say this would be entertaining. The assessments took place in the central training hall with all the mats pushed to the sides. Students sat in rows around the open space, while one person at a time walked to the center and showed what they could do. Danny watched for hours as aliens of every kind demonstrated their abilities. Some broke blocks of metal with their bare hands. Others moved so fast they seemed to blur. One student, a creature made of flexible blue material, twisted its body into shapes that should have been impossible and struck targets from angles no one expected. When it was finally Danny's turn, the hall grew quiet in a different way. It was not the respectful silence that came before other demonstrations. It was the eager silence of people waiting to see something fail. Danny walked to the center of the hall and stood with his hands at his sides. He was wearing the plain white uniform of a beginner, and he looked very small and very alone. "The human will now demonstrate basic combat readiness," the announcer said. There was amusement in his voice. Instructor Al stepped forward. You will perform the standard assessment forms. Begin when ready. Danny began moving through the basic patterns he had been taught. They were simple movements, blocks and strikes that any beginner would know. He performed them correctly but without any special speed or power. The audience quickly grew bored. Some students started talking among themselves. Others laughed openly. Is that it? Someone called out. My hatching could fight better than that. Danny finished the forms and bowed to Instructor Al. The reptilian's face showed nothing, but his eyes seemed disappointed. Adequate, Al said. The human passes the basic assessment. He remains at white belt. Of course he does, a deep voice said from the crowd. Danny turned and saw standing up from his seat. The champion walked toward the center of the hall, all four arms swinging casually at his sides. The other students quickly moved out of his way. I have been watching this human all week, said loudly. He moves like he is afraid of his own shadow. He trains with the children and the weaklings, and yet I hear whispers that humans think they are warriors. Stopped just a few feet from Danny. Up close, there was even more impressive. His purple skin seemed to absorb the light, and his muscles moved under that skin like cables made of steel. Tell me, little human, said, on your world do they really teach you to fight, or do they teach you to run and hide? Danny looked up it calmly. We have many fighting styles on Earth, hundreds of them. We have been developing them for thousands of years. Laughed and the sound echoed through the hall. Thousands of years, and yet you still look like prey. Perhaps your fighting styles are as soft as your skin. A student named pushed through the crowd to stand beside. He was smaller than but still much larger than Danny. His red scales were bright with excitement. Let me test him, said eagerly. A demonstration match. I promise not to break too many of his bones. The crowd cheered at this suggestion. Danny could feel hundreds of eyes watching him, waiting to see what he would do. I would rather not, Danny said quietly. I am still new here. I need more time to learn your ways. The cheering turned to laughter, hissed with amusement. He refuses. The human is a coward. I am not a coward, Danny said. I am simply not ready. Not ready? Leaned down until his face was close to Danny's. You will never be ready, human. Your species is weak. It is in your blood. In 200 years, no human has ever made it past white belt in this academy. You will be no different. Danny met's eyes without flinching. Maybe you are right, he said, or maybe you are wrong, we will see. Something flickered in his expression. It was gone quickly, but Danny saw it. It was the smallest hint of uncertainty. We will see indeed, said. He straightened up and walked away, and the crowd parted for him like water around a stone. After the assessments ended, found Danny in the corridor outside the training hall. Her face was tight with frustration. Do you understand what you just did? She demanded. Everyone thinks you are a coward now. That reputation will follow you forever. It will follow all humans who come here after you. I know, Danny said. Then why did you refuse to fight? Danny looked at her steadily. Because I was not ready, but I will be soon. What does that mean? Instead of answering, Danny asked a question of his own. The annual ranking tournament is next week, correct? The one where any student can challenge for any rank. Frowned, yes, why? Can a white belt challenge for black belt? His eyes went wide. Technically yes, but that would be insane. No one has ever skipped more than one rank at a time, and the penalty for failure is expulsion from the academy. Danny nodded slowly. I understand. Danny, what are you planning? He smiled at her, and for the first time since they met, saw something different in his eyes. Something that had been hidden underneath his quiet and unassuming surface. It was not anger or pride. It was something colder and more patient. I have been watching them, Danny said. All of them, and I have learned something important. What? They have never fought a human before. Not really. They do not know what we can do. He turned and walked toward his quarters. They are going to find out. The Grand Tournament Arena was the largest space Danny had ever seen inside a building. It was round like a bowl and filled with thousands of seats that rose up toward a ceiling so high it was hard to see. Lights floated in the air without any wires holding them, casting bright white light down onto the fighting platform in the center. That platform was a circle of smooth material about 50 feet across. Holographic screens surrounded it, ready to display the matches to everyone in the arena and to broadcast them across dozens of worlds. The annual ranking tournament was one of the biggest events in galactic martial arts, and beings from every corner of known space tuned in to watch. Danny stood in the registration line with his white belt tied around his waist. Around him, students in belts of every color were signing up for their matches. Most of them glanced at Danny and looked away quickly, dismissing him as unimportant. When Danny reached the registration desk, a small blue alien with 6 eyes looked up at him. Name and current rank. Danny Holt, white belt. The alien's eyes blinked in sequence. And what rank are you challenging for? Black belt. The alien stopped moving, all 6 of its eyes focused on Danny at the same time. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I am challenging for black belt. Silence spread out from the registration desk like ripples in water. Students nearby turned to stare. Someone laughed nervously. Someone else whispered that the human had lost his mind. That is not possible, the alien said slowly. You are a white belt. You have been at the academy for less than 2 weeks. The rules say any student can challenge for any rank, Danny said calmly. There is no requirement about time or current rank. I looked it up. The alien's mouth opened and closed several times. Finally, it turned to look at someone behind it. A moment later, Instructor Al appeared, his yellow eyes fixed on Danny with an unreadable expression. Human, Al said, do you understand what you are asking? Yes, Instructor. No white belt has ever challenged for black belt in the history of this academy. The gap is too large. You would be fighting against our most skilled warriors. I understand. Al leaned closer. If you fail, you will be expelled. You will never be allowed to return. Your name will be recorded as a failure, and that record will follow you across every planet in Council space. I understand that too. And you still wish to do this? Danny nodded. I do. A murmur ran through the growing crowd. More and more students were gathering to see what was happening. Danny heard his name being repeated, passed from person to person, spreading through the arena like fire. Al studied Danny for a long moment. Then he made a sound deep in his throat that might have been respect or might have been pity. Very well, the challenge is accepted. You will face one opponent in single combat. If you win, you earn the black belt. If you lose, you are expelled. He paused. Who do you wish to challenge? Before Danny could answer, a voice boomed across the arena. I will fight him. The crowd parted and walked through. The champion moved like a predator, all 4 arms loose and ready at his sides. His purple skin seemed darker than usual, and his eyes were locked onto Danny with fierce intensity. This human has been an annoyance since he arrived, said. Always watching, always quiet. I want to know what he thinks he is hiding. He stopped in front of Danny and looked down at him. I accept your challenge, little human. I will be your opponent. The crowd exploded with noise. People were shouting and cheering and rushing to find seats. This was better than anyone had expected. The reigning champion against a white belt human. It would be a massacre. Betting stations around the arena lit up with activity. Within minutes, the odds were posted on every screen. Was favored at 500 to 1. Some stations refused to take bets on Danny at all, saying it would be stealing money. Pushed through the crowd and grabbed Danny's arm. Her face was pale with fear. Are you insane? Has killed opponents before, legally, in this very arena. I know, Danny said. Then why are you doing this? Because it needs to be done. That's not an answer. Danny turned to face her fully. I have watched every recording of every fight in this academy for the past week. I have studied their styles, their patterns, their weaknesses, and I have learned something that none of them know. What? They are predictable, all of them. They rely on their physical advantages so much that they never learn to adapt. They never needed to. Danny's voice was quiet but steady. Humans are different. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. We survived by being smarter and faster and more creative than anything else on our planet. We invented martial arts because we had to. Shook her head. Is too strong, too fast. He has 4 arms. And I have something he has never seen before. Danny smiled slightly. I have 10,000 years of human fighting knowledge in my head, styles from every corner of Earth, techniques that no alien has ever encountered. You really think you can beat him? I do not think I know. The announcement system crackled to life. The challenge match will begin in 30 minutes. Danny Holt, human white belt, versus of black belt and academy champion. All spectators, please take your seats. Danny walked toward the preparation area where fighters waited before their matches. followed him, still looking worried. "Is there anything I can do?" she asked. "Yes, watch carefully. And when this is over, make sure the recording gets sent to every human colony in the galaxy." "Why?" Danny stopped at the entrance to the preparation room and looked back at her. "Because today, everything changes. Today, every alien who ever laughed at a human is going to learn something new. They are going to learn why Earth survived." He walked into the preparation room, and the door closed behind him. Inside, Danny sat on a bench and closed his eyes. He controlled his breathing, slowing his heart rate, calming his mind. He thought about his father teaching him his first punch when he was 6 years old. He thought about the thousands of hours he had spent training, the countless bruises and failures and small victories that had led him to this moment. He thought about all the humans who would come to this academy after him, all the humans who would travel the galaxy and face the same mockery and prejudice he had faced. He could not change what they had already suffered, but he could change what came next. When the door opened and an official told him it was time, Danny stood up and walked toward the arena. His hands were steady and his mind was clear. The roar of the crowd grew louder with each step. He stepped out onto the fighting platform and saw waiting on the other side. There was rolling all four shoulders, loosening muscles that looked like they could crush steel. The holographic screens showed his face, calm and confident and perhaps slightly amused. Danny walked to his starting position and waited. The noise of the crowd faded into a distant hum. Everything became very still and very clear. The referee stepped onto the platform between them. "This is a challenge match for the rank of black belt. The match ends when one fighter yields, is unable to continue, or is declared defeated by the judges. There are no other rules." He looked at both fighters. "Are you ready?" Cracked the knuckles on all four hands. "I have been ready since this human arrived." Danny simply nodded. The referee raised his arm. The entire arena seemed to hold its breath. Then his arm came down and a bell rang through the silence. "Begin." The timer on the holographic screens began counting the moment the bell rang. 0 seconds and rising. Exploded forward like a missile. His four arms spread wide, each one positioned to cut off a different angle of escape. His body was a wall of purple muscle, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. This was his signature opening, the same attack Danny had watched on recordings 100 times. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Danny did not try to block. He did not try to run. Instead, he did something no opponent had ever done to before. He stepped forward directly into the attack, at an angle so precise it seemed impossible. The movement came from boxing, a slip his father had taught him when he was 8 years old. The human body turned sideways, becoming a smaller target, sliding between the gap in outstretched arms like water through fingers. 4 seconds, 5 seconds. His eyes widened with surprise. His upper arms closed on empty air where Danny should have been. His lower arms swept inward to catch the human, but Danny was already moving again. Judo, the ancient Japanese art of using an enemy's force against them. Danny's hands found his lower left arm and guided it, not fighting the strength but redirecting it. This own momentum carried him forward and slightly off balance. 6 seconds, 7 seconds, 8 seconds. The crowd made no sound. They were frozen in their seats, unable to process what they were seeing. The human was not running. The human was not dying. The human was dancing with the champion like they had practiced this 1,000 times. Recovered and spun, all four arms striking in a pattern designed to be impossible to avoid. It was the technique that had defeated every opponent he had ever faced. 4 attacks from 4 angles at the same time. Danny dropped low, a movement from wrestling, and came up inside guard. For one heartbeat, he was closer to than any opponent had ever been without being crushed. 9 seconds, 10 seconds, 11 seconds. Danny's right hand shot forward. It was not a punch. It was something older and more precise. Dim, the death touch, a technique from ancient China that targeted the body's pressure points. His fingers struck 3 spots on his torso in rapid succession. They were small spots, each no larger than a coin, hidden in the gaps between the thick muscles. Danny had found them by studying medical diagrams of anatomy. They were nerve clusters that connected to the spinal column. They did not even know they were vulnerable. No one had ever thought to look. 12 seconds. Made a sound that was half roar and half gasp. His arms stopped moving in mid-swing. His legs buckled. His eyes went wide with shock and confusion. 13 seconds. The champion crashed to the ground like a falling tree. He lay on his back, staring up at the floating lights, his mouth opening and closing but no words coming out. His arms twitched once and then went still. The timer stopped at 13 seconds. Danny stood over his fallen opponent, breathing calmly, his hands at his sides. He had not been touched. There was not a single mark on him. The arena was completely silent. Thousands of beings from dozens of species sat frozen, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. The holographic screens replayed the fight in slow motion, showing every movement, every slip, every precise strike. The referee walked onto the platform slowly like he was moving through a dream. He knelt beside and checked his vital signs. There was alive. His eyes were moving. His chest was rising and falling, but his body would not respond to his commands. "What did you do to him?" the referee asked Danny. "Temporary paralysis of the voluntary nervous system," Danny said. "He will recover full movement in about 6 hours. No permanent damage." The referee stood up and stared at Danny for a long moment. Then he raised his arm and pointed at the human. "Winner by technical knockout, Danny Holt." The words echoed through the arena. For 3 full seconds nothing happened. Then the noise began. It started as a rumble like distant thunder. Then it grew into a roar that shook the walls. Some were screaming in anger. Some were shouting in amazement. Some were simply making sounds because they did not know what else to do. Instructor Al strode onto the platform, his yellow eyes fixed on Danny with an expression the human could not read. "Explain what you did, in detail." Danny faced the instructor calmly. Attacked with a forearm spread pattern leading with his upper right. It is his signature opening. He uses it because it covers all angles of escape. He paused. But it does not cover angles of approach. I stepped into the gap between his upper and lower arms on his left side. That gap is less than a foot wide, and he was moving at full speed. "Boxing footwork," Danny said. "Humans developed it to avoid punches we could not block. The timing has to be exact, but once you understand the pattern, it is not difficult." Al's eyes narrowed, and the throw. "That was judo. We use an opponent's momentum against them. The stronger they are, the better it works." Committed fully to his attack, which made him easy to redirect. "And the final strike." Danny hesitated for just a moment. "DIM, pressure point manipulation. Humans have been studying the vulnerable points of the body for thousands of years. When I arrived, I studied anatomy. I found 3 nerve clusters that are not protected by muscle or bone. Striking them in sequence disrupts the signals between the brain and the body." Al stared at him. "You studied our anatomy looking for weaknesses." "I study everyone's anatomy. It is part of my training." "Your training?" Al looked down at who was still lying motionless on the platform. Medical staff were approaching to carry him away. "Human martial arts. Is this what all humans can do?" Danny shook his head. "No, I have trained for 11 years, but what I did today is not special. It is simply a combination of techniques that humans have been developing for a very long time. We had to be creative. We had no claws or fangs. We could not rely on strength alone." The crowd was still making noise, but it was changing now. The anger was fading. Something else was taking its place. Danny heard his name being repeated over and over, spreading through the arena and beyond. Pushed through the officials and ran to Danny. Her eyes were wet with tears, but she was smiling. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it. I told you I would." But 13 seconds. Against. No one is ever going to believe this. Danny looked up at the holographic screens, which were still replaying the fight from every angle. They will believe it because they saw it, and now they will start asking questions. He turned to face the crowd, the thousands of aliens who were staring at him with new eyes. They will ask how a soft, weak human defeated their champion, and when they look for answers, they will find the truth. "What truth?" Danny smiled. "That humans were never weak. We just never had a reason to show our strength before." He looked toward the exit where was being carried out on a stretcher. The eyes were fixed on Danny, and there was something new in them. Not anger, not humiliation, curiosity. "The galaxy is going to learn a lot about Earth in the coming years," Danny said quietly. "This is just the beginning." The referee approached them with a small box in his hands. Inside, resting on dark cloth, was a black belt. "Normally the ranking ceremony is tomorrow," the referee said, but given the circumstances, I do not think anyone will object if we handle this now. He held out the box. Danny Holt of Earth, you have earned the rank of Black Belt in the Galactic Martial Arts Academy, the first human to ever do so. Danny took the belt and held it carefully. It was lighter than he expected, such a small thing to cause such a big change. Around him, the noise of the crowd was shifting again. He heard his name being chanted. He saw aliens looking at him with something that might have been the beginning of respect. 13 seconds. That was all it had taken to change everything. The Hall of Champions was a long corridor lined with statues and holograms of every black belt the Academy had ever produced. 200 years of history filled those walls. Warriors from 100 different worlds stood frozen in victory poses, their names and achievements carved in stone beneath their images. Danny walked between the statues with at his side. Tomorrow, his own image would join this collection. The thought made him feel strange in a way he could not quite describe. The formal ranking ceremony was held in a chamber at the end of the hall. It was smaller than the tournament arena but still impressive, with curved walls of polished metal and a ceiling that showed the stars outside the station. Representatives from the Galactic Council were present, along with instructors, senior students, and dozens of journalists recording everything for broadcast across known space. Instructor Al stood at the center of the chamber, holding the black belt that Danny had earned. His yellow eyes were calm, but there was something different in the way he looked at the human now. The mockery was gone, so was the pity. Danny Holt of Earth, Al said, his deep voice filling the room. You came to this academy as a white belt. You were given no advantages and asked for no mercy. In 13 seconds, you defeated our reigning champion and demonstrated techniques that none of us had ever seen. He held out the belt. This rank is not given lightly. It represents mastery of combat and understanding of discipline. You have earned it. He paused. You are the first human to do so. Danny stepped forward and accepted the belt. He tied it around his waist carefully, making sure the knot was correct. The weight of it felt different now than when he had first held it yesterday. Applause filled the chamber. Danny noticed that it was genuine, not polite. Even the aliens who had mocked him just days ago were clapping with real enthusiasm. People respected strength, no matter where it came from. When the applause faded, a figure pushed through the crowd. It was, walking on his own feet, his 4 arms moving normally. The paralysis had worn off exactly when Danny said it would. The crowd went quiet. Danny turned to face the, unsure what to expect. Stopped in front of him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then did something that made the entire room gasp. He lowered his head in a bow of respect. I have been fighting since I could walk, said. I thought I understood combat. I thought I had seen everything there was to see. He raised his head and met Danny's eyes. I was wrong. You are very skilled, Danny said. Your speed and strength are impressive. But speed and strength were not enough, flexed his 4 hands slowly. You did not try to match my power. You used my power against me. I have never seen anything like it. It is called judo on Earth. It means the gentle way. The gentle way made a sound that might have been a laugh. There was nothing gentle about lying on that floor unable to move. He stepped closer. Tell me something, human. On your world, do all warriors train like you? Danny considered the question carefully. Not all, but many. We have hundreds of different martial arts. Some focus on strikes, some focus on throws, some focus on pressure points. Some combine all of these things together. Hundreds of different styles. Maybe more. We have been fighting each other for a very long time. His eyes widened slightly. You have been fighting each other, your own species. For thousands of years. Wars, competitions, personal combat. Humans are very good at fighting. We had to be. Our planet was dangerous and we had no natural weapons. Danny smiled slightly. So we made ourselves into weapons. The chamber was completely silent now. Everyone was listening, trying to understand this strange species that had seemed so harmless just days ago. I would like to learn, said. Your techniques, your styles, if you are willing to teach. This surprised Danny. You want to learn from me. You defeated me in 13 seconds. That makes you my better. His voice was matter-of-fact, without shame or resentment. Among my people, we learn from those who are better. It is how we grow. Before Danny could respond, Instructor Al stepped forward. That is an excellent idea. In fact, the Academy has been discussing something similar. He looked at Danny. We would like to offer you a position as an instructor. You would teach human martial arts to any student who wishes to learn. Danny blinked. An instructor, but I am only 17. I'm still a student myself. You are a black belt. That gives you the right to teach. Al's expression was serious. We have realized that we know nothing about human combat techniques. Your victory proved that clearly. We would be honored if you would share your knowledge with us. Danny thought about it for a long moment. It was a generous offer, a position of respect and authority in the most prestigious martial arts academy in the galaxy. Any human would be proud to accept. But something in his chest said it was not right, not yet. I am grateful for the offer, Danny said slowly, but I have to decline, at least for now. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Al's eyes narrowed. May I ask why? Because I still have much to learn. I defeated because I understood his style better than he understood mine. But there are thousands of fighting styles in this galaxy that I have never seen. I want to study them. I want to understand them. Danny looked around the chamber at the diverse collection of beings watching him. I want to become a true master, not just of human martial arts, but of all martial arts. A slow smile spread across Al's face. It was the first time Danny had ever seen the smile. That is a wise answer, perhaps the I have heard from any student. He nodded respectfully. The offer will remain open. When you are ready, we will be waiting. Found Danny after the ceremony ended. She was holding a data pad and looking at it with wide eyes. Do you know how many messages we have received in the last hour? She asked. How many? Over 10,000, from human colonies across the galaxy. People want to know about you. They want to know about human martial arts. Applications to the Academy from humans have increased by 3,000% since your match. Danny nodded slowly. Good, that is what I hope for. You planned this. Not the details, but yes, I wanted humans to see that we belong here, that we are not prey, that we can stand beside any species in the galaxy and hold our own. He looked out through a window at the stars. For too long, humans have been treated as second-class citizens out here, weak, soft, unimportant. That changes now. Stood beside him, following his gaze. You really think one fight can change all that? One fight can start a change. The rest will take time. Danny turned to look at her. But it will happen. Humans will come to this academy and they will learn and they will earn their ranks. And every time they do, the galaxy will have to adjust its expectations a little more. A young student approached them nervously. He was small for his species, probably not much older than Danny. His scales were a pale orange color, and his eyes were full of something that looked like awe. Excuse me, the young said, Master Holt. Danny almost laughed at being called Master. Just Danny is fine. Danny, then, I wanted to ask you something. The young alien hesitated. Is it true that humans come from a death world, a planet where everything is trying to kill you? Danny considered the question. It was something he had heard before, a rumor that circulated through the galaxy about Earth. Most species thought it was exaggeration. I do not know if I would call it a death world, Danny said finally. But yes, Earth is dangerous. We have predators and poisonous animals and natural disasters. The weather can kill you. The water can kill you. Even some of the plants can kill you. The young's eyes went wide. And you survived all of that, without claws or armor. Danny smiled. We did not just survive. We became the dominant species on the planet. We did it by being smart and adaptable and by never giving up. He put a hand on the young alien's shoulder. Earth did not make us weak. It made us survivors. The nodded slowly, processing this information. Then he straightened up with new determination in his eyes. I want to learn from you someday, when you are ready to teach. I would like that, Danny said. What is your name? Yes. Danny recognized the name. This was the same who had wanted to fight him on assessment day, the one who had called him a coward. Things had changed since then. I will remember you, Danny said. Keep training, get stronger, and when I am ready to teach, I will find you. Bowed deeply and walked away with his head held high. Danny watched him go, then turned back to the window and the endless stars beyond. Somewhere out there, millions of humans were going about their lives, most of them never knowing what had happened today. But they would find out soon. And when they did, everything would be different. He was still just a teenager from Ohio. Still the same person who had stepped off that shuttle 2 weeks ago. But he had done something that would echo across the galaxy for years to come. 13 seconds. That was all it had taken to show the galaxy what humanity could do. And this was only the beginning.